Before we start, I just wanted to remember that I am chairing this meeting from the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people, and I acknowledge them and respect them as the past, present, and future guardians and caretakers of these lands. And I encourage everyone from wherever you're joining to take a second and think about the traditional guardians and caretakers of the places that you're dialing in from. Um, uh, I'm here today with Patrick, Ryan, Tanya Carrière, and unfortunately we don't have Guillaume Seguin, who is the director of their division, although he may try to join us later, and as well as Bertrand Mir from PAFSO, our general manager, to talk to us about the Code of Values and Ethics, in particular on social media. And I'm just going to start the recording of the meeting, or no, sorry, I've started the recording. Just remind everyone that we're recording the meeting. It will be available for people to watch afterwards on our private YouTube channel. So just, be aware of that. If depending on the number of participants, if people have questions that they want to speak to us, if we only have a few, just remember that, you're welcome to do that. I can invite you to do that, but you will appear on the recording as we talk. So our recording is not searchable. But whenever there is a recording link that people can view, we just have to remember that it could always be shared with someone. And so just keep that in mind with our comments. So Patrick Ryan has very kindly agreed to join us from GAC's Values and Ethics Division. He is a 20-year career public servant. Came to us most recently a year and a half ago from IRCC, where he had spent 17 years? Did you say
Yeah.
17 years at IRCC? I mean,
17 years,
I
yeah.
feel I'm at the point now where I've spent more than that at GAC, but
Yeah.
there's a point where you get to the point where you're like, oh, do we want to say how long we, but I
It
mean,
gives your
I
age
think
out,
it's,
eh? Yeah.
yes, yes. And 8 years or so working specifically on values and ethics in your career, I understand. So
Yes.
Patrick is extremely well placed to talk to us about this important topic, especially in this important time. And he has brought with him Tanya, who I will ask Tanya to quickly introduce herself. Tanya, do you want to tell us about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Tanya Carrière. I'm a values and ethics advisor with Pat. I've been with Global Affairs for almost 7 years now, but I left for a bit and then I came back. I've been back since August 2023, and I've been in values and ethics for about almost 4 years.
Oh, wow. So you've probably seen a few things.
Yes.
Yeah. And I also asked Bert to join us. Bert is our general manager, and so he sees a lot of these things from the other side. So Bert, maybe you just quickly introduce yourself for folks who don't know you?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Bonjour tout le monde. As Pam mentioned, my real name is Bertrand Mir, also known as Bert, as Pam referred to. Look, I'm the general manager of PAFSO. Been in that position now for a year and a half. Before that, I was a labor relation officer at PAFSO for 3 years. I Unlike Tanya, I certainly do not want to give away my age, but I've been a union rep for 35 years. So if you make the calculation, let's say that I'm getting close to retirement. I don't know when, but it's getting there. But it's certainly an interesting topic, one that we've certainly received several questions from our members, and I'm glad to see that Patrick and Tanya has accepted to kind of provide GAC's at least GAC's position on the usage of social media, which more and more seems to be a prevalent issue right now. So I'll let obviously Patrick and Tanya do their presentation, and if there's any questions with regards to more the PAFSO as an organization, you can certainly ask me that question. So
Okay, thanks, Bert. Yeah,
thank you.
just the genesis of this came from, you know, a number of questions that we were getting in particular since the start of the Hamas-Israel conflict, and people wanting to know what the parameters were of what they could say and do, and, you know, where their rights to freedom of expression versus other things come in. And so we thought, you know, it would be good to hear from the source how these things are seen and interpreted by GAC in particular. We really appreciate you guys being willing to take the time to do this. So Patrick, I've taken down the share of my landing page there. I understand you have a deck that you're going to go through.
Oh,
And la présentation serait dans les deux langues, je comprends?
oui. Ben, je peux parler dans les deux langues, oui, effectivement.
Oui, et tout le monde peut poser des questions dans la langue de leur choix.
Absolument.
Aussi, OK, bon. Et s'il vous plaît, utilisez le bouton pour les questions dans le système. Et je vais regarder. Et s'il y a des questions hot pursuit, peut-être je vais interrompre, mais pas normalement on tient les questions au fin. Does that make? We'll hold them until the end, and then go through them then. Unusually for this one, I've enabled anonymous questions because I understand, you know, that some of the issues are that people are feeling sometimes that they're intimidated from, you know, being able to ask things, or worried about being seen to be associated with certain points of view or certain groups. So I've enabled anonymous questions for this one to give them a chance. But I will be not, I see the participants out there. I don't think we're going to have an issue, and we don't usually in our things, but you know, just bear in mind, I'm still seeing the questions before they go forward. So if there's anything rude or inappropriate in there, you know, save it, you know, save that for the bathroom wall. That's not going to, we're not going to be discussing, you know, any insults or anything on that. So without
Quick
further
question,
ado,
Pamela, before you give me the floor, basically, are you able to upload the presentation on your end to show to everyone while I'm speaking?
do you want me to do it, or
Can you do
because
that,
you can do
please?
it, you can do it yourself on
I
your.
know, but I'm trying to keep mine on with my notes just to
Oh, okay,
on
sure,
the
I
side.
can.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
I
just give me
appreciate
one
that.
second. I'm just going to turn my camera off while I dig in my email, and I will
Sure, no
pop that
problem. And I'll just
down.
introduce myself as well, and just wanted to thank everyone for inviting me and Tanya, myself as a guest panelist, of course, for your breakfast webinar to speak about, obviously, social media. Je suis accompagné de ma collègue Tanya Carrière, qui va être ici comme observatrice aujourd'hui. And also as my virtual bodyguard, in case you guys hit me with too many questions. I'm kidding. It's very, I want to say offline, nothing too formal. It is also a tough subject for us to look into, to delve into, actually, because it's always case by case, where you know, online activities occur. There's not like it's not black or white, obviously. It's values and ethics. Let's be real. We know that it's a gray zone. It is for us as well. I'm going to ask you to be patient with us. But we're thrilled to be here, as I mentioned. And I wanted to reiterate as well that what Pamela said, as far as any questions or comments, feel free to speak in the language of your choice, English or French. Ça me fera un plaisir de vous répondre dans la langue de votre choix. So as Pamela mentioned earlier, Guillaume is not with us this morning. He's going to try, as Pamela mentioned, he's going to try and pop in during this presentation. So if it's okay, without further ado, we're going to begin our journey on federal public service employees and the use of social media. So there's three types of functional uses of social media. For those of us who are not aware, there's there's one you can use for official use, which represents the organization, and is also used to either collaborate, communicate, provide services on behalf of the department on our programs, on apps such as Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, just to name a few. So that would be the official use social media with GAC. Also, there's a professional use. So this is a personal account for professional purposes and doesn't represent the Government of Canada or GAC, but is used to network, share, collaborate, research, keep up to date with with our own professions on apps such as LinkedIn. There's also Instagram, there's Reddit, Facebook, to name a few. And last but not least, there's the personal use. So this is for personal purposes and used to keep up with friends, family, personal interests. You'll find that mostly on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, just to name a few again. So these are the functional uses of social media and the three types of accounts that could be created within our network. And obviously there's a personal use one. So I'll skip into the next slide. So I'll be saying that for every slide so that you're aware when to, as my Vanna White, you'll be aware to skip the next slide. So we've got our obligations under the codes. I say codes because we have two at GAC. We have the GAC's Values and Ethics Code, of course, and there's also the code for Canadian representatives abroad. So our obligations under the codes when using social media or electronic media of any type for professional, personal, or official use, employees must not forget to uphold the public service duties of loyalty and refrain from public criticism of the Government of Canada, as you are all aware, uphold the political neutrality and impartiality of the federal public service. FYI, the Public Service Commission has the file on that. It's not us. So for any matters that would be investigated as far as political activities, they would take the lead on that and not us. Also, there's respecting confidentiality, privacy, by not using or disclosing confidential, corporate, or privileged information that is not available to the general public, avoiding statements that could impair or be perceived as impairing an employee's ability to perform their official duties. Also, it's important to ensure that any of our actions can always withstand the closest public scrutiny because we answer to the public, of course, and acting in a manner that maintains our employer's trust is very important. And acting in a manner that doesn't harm the reputation of the department, of the Government of Canada, or departments or agencies with which we deal with. And this is just because we're these days, I mean, since the pandemic and whatnot, we're bringing our work home and bringing our personal lives at work. So the lines can get blurry when we're networking using social media platforms, either as a professional and personally. So the two can get easily mixed, okay? Next slide. And if I'm going too fast, please raise your hand or do something. I have a tendency to speak fast, so slow me down if that's required. I won't be upset in any way, shape, or form. So now we're going into the duty of loyalty. Yes.
Oh, no, sorry. I just was saying, I think you're doing fine.
Oh, thank you. Thank Pamela. I appreciate that. So the duty of loyalty basically is linked to the values of respect for democracy, also integrity, respect for people, and the stewardship values, or it draws its strength from that. So applying the duty of loyalty on social media platforms is still very great. However, we are TBS when they proposed the duty of loyalty. There were like lines that we couldn't cross, such as refraining from criticizing our employer, the government, or the Government of Canada as a whole. Refraining from criticizing the department that we work for or other departments and its related policies. We have to respect our co-workers, so no bullying online and so on. If employees see that, they are, they have a duty to let us know so that we can, look into the matter. And of course, it's case by case. As I mentioned earlier, there's nothing that's black or white. So it really has to, depending on who gives us the information with, we'll usually get screenshots of an employee's activity. And by the way, employees that have personal accounts that either vent on or whatnot. People that are part of their friends list are sometimes colleagues. And these sometimes are the people that will disclose what's the online activities or whatnot. So my takeaway from mixing the personal with the professional, I don't think it's a good idea personally. That's my choice. However, when you're adding friends or that are colleagues from work and whatnot in your personal account, you're limiting yourself to that freedom of speech, right? To what you can say, because you're part of your friends or your colleagues, and everybody knows that we have a strict code of conduct to abide by. So when they see activities like that happening, they will bring that forward, because they just say basically, well, if I have to, stick by the rules, then everybody should, and it's public, right? Our code and whatnot. So the reason why it's public, it's because we work for the public, and everybody is then aware of what it is, what the expected behaviors are within the organization when it is public. So there's also avoid mentioning where you work, not on the professional accounts or the corporate accounts. This is mostly on personal accounts. The more you identify what you do, where you're from, who you work for, and so on, the less possibilities you have to use that social media platform for whatever reasons you do. So basically, what I'm trying to reiterate is, the more you put where you work and so on, the more your friends or whomever is following you is aware of what you can, should, or not say. So employees are responsible to comply, obviously, and exemplify in all of their actions and behaviors, the department's values and expected behaviors. They are hybrid to the values and ethics code for the public sector. So we kept the same 5 values and expected behaviors. We didn't add any additional ones. And Pamela, do you have to intervene by any chance? No? Okay, that's fine. Okay, sorry.
No, sorry, I just wondered, did I get out of sync with your slides?
Okay, no, you're still good. We're still on. Oh, actually, it would have to be on the duty of loyalty still.
Oh,
That's
okay,
fine. That's
sorry.
okay. No worries. It's okay. It's okay. It's so small in the big scheme of things, right? So basically, GAC's values and expected behaviors are specific to our mandate, of course, and our work environment, and is identical, as I mentioned, to those that are outlined in TBS's values and ethics code for the public sector. When employees signs their letter of offers, they are reminded that, well, they acknowledge first off that the code is a condition of employment. And the general rule of thumb is that 3 situations in which the balancing of these interests is likely to result in an exception being made to the duty of loyalty, because I talk about the duty of loyalty and how we must respect that, and we have to be careful not to criticize and either the government or the department. There are situations that are exceptions, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So these exceptions are that the government would be engaged in illegal acts, or the government policies jeopardize the life, health, or safety, or the public servant's criticism has no impact on his or her ability to perform effectively their duties or on the public perception of that ability. So these would be the 3 situations where it would be, I don't want to say okay, but that an employee cannot be like there can't be any measures applied on the employee if that is for a fact one of the 3 reasons why the public servant did criticize or the government or its policies or even the department. The duty of loyalty, of course, it can be accessed on the TBS website. It also gives us the Supreme Court hearings that occurred in light of the social media and whatnot. So it's interesting to go and read on that, just to give you an example of cases that made it to the Supreme Court, and that that were for whichever result, how it ended, it gives you an idea of what sanction, I guess, was given to the employee, or if they had to repay the employee while the employee was off without pay and so on. So it's an interesting read. So I would strongly recommend that you guys familiarize yourself with that. So we can go into the next slide, Pamela. Thanks. So I called this slide self-check. So whenever we are posting on social media, it's important to remember the following. When you're commenting online, do it in the same way that you would in a meeting, over coffee, or a public forum. To display a positive attitude through the postings and interactions, taking a step back before you post something in the heat of the moment that you will regret in the future. This is because sometimes we're driven by the emotion of news that impact us or impact our family or whatnot, like we're seeing, and then sometimes we're just going on the emotion, and then when you look back at it, let's say 5-10 minutes later, you probably wouldn't have been as gung-ho in saying how it made you feel or whatnot when you initially posted that the comment or whatnot online. What I usually say to employees or to whomever I cross that talks about social media and whatnot is, if there's something that really irks you or gets you all emotional or gives you feelings of rage or whatever it is, I would highly recommend that you take a step back, that you take a walk or go for a glass of water. And believe me, after that 5 minutes away from the situation, you are a little more in the moment and not as much with that strong emotion. So it won't overtake your ability to use your judgment and whatnot, because sometimes in the heat of the moment, we don't see nothing. All we see is our response that we want to put out there. But 20 years ago, it wasn't this wasn't an opportunity for anybody to be able to write whatever we want to write online for the world to see. It's not a specific group of people that gets to see that public message. It becomes public, like, for the world to see. 20 years ago, we would have had to go through an editor at the local newspaper to post something on the newspaper, and of course, whenever they would look at it, they would filter it and edit your content that you provided, and sometimes it didn't always come out the way that you wanted your message to come out or whatnot. It had to go through different layers. In the virtual world, those layers don't exist, so it's important that we make those layers within ourselves and not react too quickly. I say take a step back before you react. I think it's very important to do that for your own reputation and for your own safety and to keep your job. Anybody that would be working for an organization outside the public service, if they would criticize their employer, believe me, the next day they'd be waiting with a box at their desk to and say, thanks for your services, goodbye. Here we have our union representatives are there to represent us. We also, so I mean, there's some support actually that exists for us. Not everybody has that advantage. So as employees, we're responsible. Yes.
Could I just ask a question in
Sure,
this context? It just occurred to me on the fly.
Yeah.
I mean, is there I think the other thing that people sometimes don't realize about social media is that, it stays there, right? And, people can see your posts from, 5-10 years ago. And now we've had these platforms for a long time, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes some of the things that may have sounded appropriate 10-12 years ago now don't sound appropriate.
Yeah.
And I mean, is there any statute of limitations on being bound by this code? Like, if someone brings forward something that somebody posted 10 years ago, and says, well, this was a violation of the code, I
Mhm.
understand that they can still be held accountable. Am I correct?
I don't know how serious that matter would be. Again, like I mentioned earlier, that would be a case, obviously, that would be investigated by for a possible breach of code. But as far as you know, what can happen to the employee that would have posted something 10 years ago, there's some leeway as far as, that would be taken into consideration because the employee might not have been a public servant back then. So it doesn't
But if
really
they
apply.
were,
But if they were, this is where they would find some sort of a balance. I'm not sure. It would be the investigator would have to gather the facts, present the facts to the delegated authority who issued the mandated investigation, let's say, and then they, along with labor relations, would, not the investigator, because we're impartial and neutral, by the way. As investigators for breach of code, we're not there to support the employer or the employee. We're there to gather the facts, present them, and then whatever happens after happens. We're not involved, and we don't want to know what happens. We've done our duty, basically, and that is it. And we have to respect that confidentiality as well. However, I wouldn't be able to give you a straight answer on that, Pamela, unfortunately, just because if they happen to be a public servant, there are steps that they would probably that they would have to go through, or it could just be a training session that would need as a refresher for the employee. It depends on the criticism or whatever it was that
the specific,
that
but
prompted that tip.
there's no automatic like, well, that was 10 years ago, and so we're not going to worry about it, right? They're
Usually, I believe that is how, how I guess the assessment of the whole situation is done. But I don't want to be putting words into the mouths of those that do the investigations. All I know is that I don't do them because that is a personal choice for myself. I'd rather be proactive and provide training, deliver training, and to inform the people rather than see them on the other side and having to, investigate, the case. But that's a personal choice. I've done it before in the past, and I choose not to at this point in my life. I prefer to be proactive. So
sounds good.
okay.
I see Tanya has popped up her camera. Tanya, did you want to
Yes,
chime in?
please.
Well, just a little bit. I think that it would be important to keep in mind, let's say if it was posted 10 years ago, what was the code? What were they les paramètres, what were
Yeah.
they
What was
like,
the scope of
what was
the,
what were
and
their
what were the guidelines at the time, I guess?
exactly. And then it would have to, if it's 10 years ago, the current code was actually written. So we would look at it as we would today. Of course, we would keep in mind that it was 10 years ago and not just yesterday, but the expectations 10 years ago are the same as they are now. So I don't think that you can write something today that you would know wouldn't pass the test and expect that if it's only discovered in 5 years from now, you're off the hook.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, Bertrand, I mean, is from the union side, we would be looking like if we were asked to help the employee, I think that's the kind of thing that we would be looking at. But Bertrand, did you want to say anything before I
Well, look, from my perspective anyway, I don't think there's a statute of limitations, but there's certainly circumstances that would have to be looked on an individual or case by case basis, right? And obviously, it always depends on the comments that
Context.
the context and also the political environment back in the time, right? So, this certainly would take part of the consideration and could potentially be a mitigating circumstance. So that would be our position if we would have to kind of deal with such a case.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I'm just thinking of, I won't go into the details for the
Yeah.
recording, but there was a recent high profile case of someone who was not currently a public servant, wasn't under scrutiny in that as a public servant on LWOP or whatever, but made some very problematic comments like a long time ago, and it
Yeah.
came to light in the context of this person's other job, and got them into trouble in that job. And then I'd heard that because those posts were made while they were a public servant,
Mhm.
that they were also going to have an issue with values and ethics. Now, in that case, I mean, those comments were egregious,
Okay.
and and even without a code, I would
Right.
say it fell into the kind of things that you definitely do not even say
Post. Right.
like, or you should not even be thinking, but you definitely are not saying. So it's just that I don't think that that person ever thought that, oh, wait a second, like now this could come back at me, even in the context of my substantive public service position, things like security clearance and, values and ethics and all of
Yeah,
that kind of thing. So,
exactly.
okay. Thanks.
Thanks for
Sorry,
sharing.
Patrick, I didn't mean to derail you.
No,
I
don't be
will let you
sorry.
get
No,
back
no,
on
that's
your.
good. This is what it's all about, right? We have to discuss as we go through the slides. So it's okay. Don't feel bad for interrupting or whatnot. I am good with all of that. Okay. Coming back to self-checking and when posting on social media, it's important to remember that we are responsible to maintain the public's trust and confidence into the impartiality and the integrity of the public service. So it's important for employees to remember to go by the bulleted list there that I just provided to you, that you can see right now on screen. Just an FYI, this presentation will be shared with those of us that are here today. And you'll see at the end there's our contact information or whatnot, if ever you need to speak on the subject or whatnot, or on anything that relates to values and ethics. Feel free to communicate either to Guillaume or to me directly. I'd be more than happy to assist you, okay? So we can skip to the next slide. Sorry. Okay, perfect. So here, that's when posting on social media, remember that. So before that, it was the remember to, but now it's remember that our comments are public for the entire world to see. It's not for a specific group. Again, whenever it's posted, no matter what, it's embedded. So even if you delete it, the comment or whatnot, or remark or whatever it is still embedded somewhere out there, okay? And the information that is shared on social media becomes public, obviously, immediately. And a disclaimer doesn't absolve you or public servants' responsibilities. There's no expectation of privacy regardless of our privacy settings. And only an authorized departmental spokesperson may issue statements on behalf of the department when it comes to using an official account or a professional account, okay? We can proceed with the next slide. So this is part two of remembering that. Everything we publish on our personal social media sites can be read by anyone or everyone we encounter, sometimes even after the post has been deleted, as I mentioned. Even if we don't identify ourselves as public servant, there are ways for people to identify us. I just think about the Government Canada Electronic Directory. You just type your name in Google search, and everything that is linked to your name will appear there as well. So believe me, there's people that have like a lot of time to surf on the internet and try to find some things to disclose something on an employee or on a federal public servant. If you publicly criticize GAC's programs and services, it makes it difficult to restore and maintain the public's trust in our federal institution. Also, we can't control the actions of others and what they do or how they comment on the information that is shared, which may place us in a risky situation as well. We could be held liable for commentary deemed to be proprietary, defamatory, libelous, obscene, or protected by copyright. So these are things to remember before we post online. I'm not sure if there's any questions so far, but I'm open to receiving questions for now.
I see Bert has a comment, and there actually is after Bert finishes, there's a related question that I'll maybe get you to do now.
Okay.
Bert, go ahead.
Well, it's actually a question, Patrick, and I don't want to put you on the spot here. I don't know if you're able to respond to my question, but given that, what everything that you publish on social media is accessible to the public, right?
Mhm.
Does a manager can a manager look at people's you know
Profiles?
social media account before, for example, deciding on assigning a person to a specific location? I'm giving you this as an example.
Right.
In other words, does the department look or review people's social media accounts when they
Oh,
when they render decisions?
that is a good question. I wish I could answer, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I think that would be a bias. Personally, that's what I think. As an investigator, I'm thinking investigator, impartial, and it would be a bias. But so if it's a culture, if it happens, personally, I
So
don't think that it's a good thing. But again, it's case by case, and it depends on where the person is probably being posted and whatnot. And so, I mean, I don't want to be giving you a straight answer on that. I can't. But it'd be interesting, I guess, to find out if that is something that is being done. I don't know. Sorry.
yeah, can I see Tanya just popped up? Did you want to chime in?
Um, it disconnected for me for about a minute, so I don't know if I missed a section or not. I can't speak for other HR disciplines. I have worked in HR all of my time at Global Affairs, and I haven't come across anything that indicated that. I guess it'd be more HFP if they look at people's social medias before deciding where to post them. That
Right.
would surprise me. But
Mm.
what I can say is from values and ethics, when we receive a conflict of interest, let's say you have an outside employment, I will generally look at what comes up on LinkedIn, look at that company's profile, anything just to see if there's any kind of intertwine. Let's say if the person's already doing that. It's more LinkedIn, I would say. I don't really go off base, but I will look at LinkedIn and see if it's mentioned that they work at both government, what kind of views they're expressing. So for our files, I will do a quick Google search for the person name and see what comes up, because sometimes we do come across information that is useful. Let's say they're asking for permission to be on a board of directors, and I see that they are already doing it. And it is a risky thing that they should have declared when they started working for us. It's just things like that. But beyond that, I can't speak to.
So thank you for that. So just bringing in the practicalities as somebody who was a deputy director for quite a long time at GAC. I mean, I still am substantively a GAC FS4, right, on LWAP.
Right.
We look at people's social media. Look, when you're looking to bring people in on assignments,
Okay.
especially overseas postings,
Mhm.
sure,
Mhm.
I mean, it's all part of that coroner reputation thing that gets GAC into trouble and can really cause problems for people. And it may not be fair or, even entirely legal, but you're trying to form an impression of somebody, of their judgment, of their suitability for often, very sensitive things.
Okay.
And sure, a Google search and, ask people, oh, do you know this person? What were they like? What were they like to work with? I mean, I wouldn't say, generally you drill down into something, but say, you're checking references or whatever, and a manager says, well, you might want to look at that person's social media. There were a few, and you go back a few posts and find, say, some very
Derogatory or
pro
whatever.
one party, pro or anti one of the other parties in a conflict in your region.
Mhm.
Well, it probably wouldn't be make or break, unless it was very sustained and everything. But, you're probably gonna go and ask that person some questions
Right.
to kind of dig down, are they gonna have the judgment and the ability to
Represent the government as a
represent
whole,
us
right?
in
Yeah.
that circumstance? And also not to cause problems for the
Right.
embassy, for their ambassador, for the people around them.
Mhm.
It's all kind of part of the mix. So, I mean, there's the kind of the technical, the legal elements of all of this, and then there's also the more gray area kind of career elements of it all. So just
Yeah.
something to think about. Patrick, did you, before I go, do you mind if I bring up this question that was
Go ahead, please. Yeah.
so it's an anonymous question, and it says, when we subscribe to sites that may be critical of a political party or a politician,
Mhm.
e.g. Trump, or subscribe to sites that lean towards a particular site covering a war, Russia versus Ukraine, are we held accountable for our subscription when we're only following the sites and not sharing or commenting on the site the site
Right.
contents.
So
I
it's
mean,
good to have an access, I guess, to those sites.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, I don't see that as a problem. And you know, we all have our. I'm not sure if this would be an account that would be created for professional purposes or just for personal purposes. However, I'd just be mindful of, you know, what you use it for, I guess, and if you're not going to be commenting or whatnot, I don't see how that can affect the impartiality of the public servant himself or herself, in trying to you know, to access, I guess, that I want to say, not paramite, but trying to access that that page or whatever it is, the or the site is what I was trying to say. So if there's no activities that would put the public servant's impartiality at risk or whatnot, then it shouldn't be a problem. You're allowed as a public servant to have your you know, political allegiances, but when you're at work, you're supposed to remain nonpartisan, and so on. But try not to especially for GAC's umbrella of services that we offer and our bilateral, you know, agreements that we have with other countries and whatnot. The public servant is aware of, you know, what is, if the accord or whatever the agreements are between country X and country Y, or you know, us and that country. They know, I'm sure, that they're using their common sense and not criticizing the other government or whatnot, because it could impact those relationships, right?
Yeah.
So and again, it's hard. I feel like I'm swimming around the question, but it's hard to. I don't see a problem if a person is subscribing to a site because they want to have more information on the said country or whatnot. But who manages the site and what is the purpose of that site and whatnot, all of that has to be taken into consideration before you sign up. You don't sign up to anything just because it's there. You really want to dig before you sign up as to why it's there, its purpose, and you know, who is the audience that it's targeted, and so on. So
You know,
I would
thank
only
you.
add,
into
Go ahead.
account. Sorry.
I would only add, don't use your Government of Canada email to sign up. Make sure, don't use their computer either. Do it on your own time, with your own resources, with your own email, to keep a clear separation between the two. And I don't remember the details of it, but during COVID, there was something where there were public servants that had subscribed to things, and there was a list of emails of all the public servants that had subscribed to it that became available in the news. It's blurry. I was on mat leave at
Or
the
are you
time.
thinking of the convoy thing where people made
Oh,
donations?
that must be it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's just a clear example of, don't use your work account for
Work
anything
account.
other
Yeah.
than work-related things.
Yeah. So I mean, I suspect that the person who's asking that question might be, you know, somebody who is analyzing difficult situations, right? Like I mean, and you know, I have done that in my career as well. And what I would suggest is, you know, create a separate account.
That's
Right.
it. Of course,
You know,
yeah.
there's plenty of places where you can go, you can create a throwaway email, mail.com, you know, different places. Just create a, you know, Iran observer or you know, Ukraine
Maintain your
Russia watcher,
anonymity.
something like that account,
Mhm.
and set it up that way, and then just use that for
Yeah.
subscribing and following different things. I mean,
Yeah.
because and you know, maybe like you might, I don't know if you might want, might need to pay for a subscription or something like that. Like, sure, there's still probably ways if if you were subscribed to like a Russia watchers, a pro-Russia site to get their news and their videos and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, maybe somebody might hack that and might get your name from your credit card. I don't know about using your credit card for a site like that in the first place, and just in terms of your credit card.
Right.
But there, I would say you're kind of doing your best to mitigate any association, right? And you have a work reason, you're an analyst, Bert could speak on specifics of this, but
Mhm.
you know, the system I think would understand why you're doing that. And if
Exactly.
any ever dug in and said, well, this analyst in this corner of GAC is getting some of
Right.
their information from whatever and tried
Yeah.
to use that to undermine the government's credibility, I mean, that would be a big so what, I think.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And again, if it would come into the hands of an investigator, they would so many more factors to consider in respect to what was disclosed. Again, those are just allegations, and the investigator's role is to really determine whether or not those allegations are substantiated or unsubstantiated, or you know what I mean. So there's a lot more effort put into determining why it was created, the account, and so on. I mean, to anybody outside looking in, it's easy for anybody to point the finger and say, this person is doing this, that, and whatever. But it's also our job, as you know, as well, I say our, but as an investigator's job, they have to look at the situation basically holistically. They have to look at, the more than just what's presented, of course, right? Because the person that would be defending their case, well, they have a right to know why there were those allegations and so on. So it's giving everybody a fair shot at the end of the day, right? So
Yeah, no, thank you, thanks.
you're welcome. Yeah.
There is one more question, but I'm gonna hold it till the end, just because it doesn't link specifically to this, so
Okay.
I'll give you back your floor.
Sounds good. And Vanna, you can skip to the next slide. Thank you. Okay. Let's just go on the next slide. So the webs of social media, I like to call that webs because sometimes feel you don't know where to throw yourself. You're kind of like tangled in webs, basically. It's just funny that it's an oxymoron at the same time. Social media is part of the web, and I find that social media is just full of webs. But anyhow, that's my personal opinion on that. I try to just share recipes on Facebook and nothing more than that. Not my life, that's for sure. So social media often blurs the lines, as I mentioned earlier, between our personal and professional social media networks. We don't want to be sharing any personal details that might negatively impact us in our work environment. So if I use Twitter as an example, since it's a very public network, the network resembles like a professional conference, let's say, or a networking event. So it's not like having a night out with friends. The key difference in our actions are visible to anyone, not just those who attended the actual event, but anybody that reads your posts. So therefore, anything you discuss on Twitter would be part of your public digital footprint. And we should always assume that it's going to be seen by a potential client, our employer, partner, colleagues, stakeholders, and so on. So I know for a fact that we've all come, I'm sure all of us has come across a post that seems to be too much information. Facebook has become, I find, throughout the years. It was initially set to connect with people, but now it's becoming more of I don't want to call it a soap opera, but I find like people are talking about their lives, what they did, this and that, like from the moment they woke up. And I just find that that's a little bit too much. But anyhow, you can avoid, I would say, this by recognizing the difference between what is personal and when we're being private. So personal is talking about the great dinner we had last night at the restaurant, whereas private is rehashing every detail of the argument you had going to the restaurant with your partner. So those would be clearer lines, I'd say, where, when we're talking personal versus private. So that helps with, mitigating way before you put anything online. Think of that before you post. What else did I want to say in that respect? I think, yeah, okay. So just keeping your colleagues in mind when you post online is a great way to keep yourself in check. That's what I think. Anything that would be not right because our colleagues are looking at it, or management, or what, like, think of that every time you come to post something online. And I think it will definitely it will give you a bigger bigger floor, I guess, to gauge before you actually post. Try to look at not just what you want to post, but who will be impacted by the post and so on. I think that's important to not forget that. We can skip to the next slide. FYI, for those of you, with your clients, you can share that starting January 22nd, in the next couple of days. The Canada School of Public Service will be offering a 2-hour course for all employees of the public service in navigating social media. So I think this is really good timing. Just got the message a couple of days ago of the list of courses that will be offered by CSPS. It introduces, the course objective is to introduce employees in engaging effectively and responsibly on social media sites, and taking into account their obligations that are under the code. So it's open to all public servants, including new employees. I think this is the group that we really want to target, because they're new. It's all fresh, the public service to them. So it's good to be proactive in that manner for new employees coming into the public service, and they're way much more social media savvy than I am, or than some of us that have been in the public service for quite some time. So I think it's the end for now. After the CSP, yeah, that's just our contact page. As I mentioned earlier, any questions or whatnot can be directed to either Guillaume or myself, and we'll be more than happy to assist you with any gray zones, because we know it's very gray in values and ethics. So questions, please.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much.
My
Merci
pleasure.
beaucoup. I really appreciate this, your willingness to come and talk to us, and your openness on the different things. Maybe as I'll give people a chance to gather their thoughts
Yes.
for final questions, but maybe I'll just go to the one that the anonymous one that came in,
Yep.
which is kind of peripheral, I think, to the topic, but we could probably answer it among us. Is an assignment officer allowed to use a personal email account to communicate with a mission program manager to discuss the candidacy of potential CBS wanting a posting? I mean, my answer to that would kind of be, that depends, right? Because if they are emailing the program manager at the program manager's official account, that's still going to get captured by any ATIP or anything like
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of would depend why they're doing that.
Right.
I don't think it's necessarily automatically wrong, but Bert and Patrick, Bert may
I
have different views. I see Bert
right.
smiling.
No, I mean, if the question is there something preventing a manager from using a personal email address, for example, the answer is no. Nothing prevents a manager. Obviously, if it's a personal email, then it's a personal choice for the employee to either answer it or not answer it, right? So, I mean, that's where I think that's where it needs to kind of draw the line here. So,
Yeah.
nothing prevents a manager from using personal emails, but nothing prevents an employee to not respond to any personal emails. So, it's a question of reasonableness, and it all depends on the circumstance. But that's kind of my answer to this question, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if
exactly.
ultimately, if the question is, can I be disciplined if I'm not responding? The answer would be technically no, right? So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, cheesy emails sent to somebody's personal account, I think tend to kind of go into junk email a lot.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
You know, as do emails sent from somebody's personal account.
Yeah.
Um, the way I've dealt with that sometimes is it has happened from time to time.
Mhm.
You know, is just to reply on Signet and say, "Hey, you know, were you wanting to discuss something with me?" It's
Right,
like,
right.
or call the person. I mean, but if the question is, you know, do people do things like that sometimes to kind of bypass fair processes, you know, thinking that they're going to avoid perhaps a privacy request, or they're, yeah, yeah, they do. And I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know if it would fall in the area of a values and ethics violation. Like, I think it's, to me personally, it's
Yeah,
as an employee and a manager and PAFSO, it's in the area of cheesy for sure.
yeah, right,
Um,
right.
but whether that is a violation, I don't know.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be able to answer as far as GAC because I haven't investigated for GAC for the department, but I can tell you by experience in my other department um, that personal emails would not be accounted for in an investigation, depending on their online activity, of course, only if it would be if they would share stuff in their from their work account to their personal account, and then you see the the transition and whatever was sent.
Yeah.
So if the information that was sent was protected, or like that would be it would be part of the investigation as far as evidence. But if it's depending on what's whatever they're sending, they're forwarding to their personal email as far as content is what would determine whether or not that personal email exchanges or whatever it is would be accounted for in the said investigation or not. So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have to run, folks. I'm sorry, I got another commitment.
okay.
But I just want to say thank you, Patrick, and
Merci,
thank you,
Bertrand.
Tanya, for this very informative session. Thank
I'm
you.
glad you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thanks.
Stay
Thank
well.
you for, see you soon.
Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye. Merci.
Thanks. Folks, if anyone has any questions, any other questions, now's the moment to ask them. If you want to put up your hand, if you want to join us as a panelist and say hi, I can also have people join and say hi.
And if you're
Um,
just digesting everything, that's okay. You've got the
yes,
presentation
yes,
will be available
exactly.
for you.
You guys have
Yeah,
the contact info. You can also reach these guys through
absolutely.
me. But maybe if it's okay with you, I will say thank you for the purposes of the recording, or
Yes, sure, absolutely. Thank you.
for other purposes as well. But I will stop recording.
Sounds good.